If you're thinking about building systems inside your business, you need to be going through 5 clear steps and asking yourself 5 questions every single time you go about building and implementing systems. We're going to cover those steps and those questions in this video, but also when you go live, there are a couple of things you need to be looking out for. All that and a whole bunch more. Let's not waste any more time. Hit it. Building systems inside your business can be incredibly complex if you don't go about it the right way. I mean, after all, your business is a collection of systems and your business is a ridiculously complex beast of a machine. We want to be able to understand the complexities of this collection of systems as a business, but also simplify it in a way that we're not missing out anything. I know, I mean, it can get out of control very, very easily. In several of my previous businesses, we grew too fast. And in a way, we were trying to implement and sort of document all of our systems and processes. We knew what SOPs were. We knew what systems were. If you don't know, by the way, the difference between all of them, I've got a video up here about it. When we tried to actually put them together, things went out of control. It wasn't captured in the right way. We didn't capture everything. We had a lot of inefficiencies. So we went about implementing and designing a system to build systems, ironically enough. And in the end, we tried to simplify it down to these 5 steps, 5 questions. And then when you're going live, you've got 2 other steps that you need to do at the end to make sure that they work really well. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because that's when I cover going live as well. Step 1 is map. Mapping your system is going to be one of the most important things that you do right at the outset. And if you haven't seen my video about mapping systems, I'm going to put a link up there in the cards for it, but also in the description below. Please do go and watch that video, because that's where we talk about how you map your systems and where you start. We're assuming that you know and you've kind of mapped them. We're going to go through the steps of being able to actually build them and implement them. Step number 2 is capture. This is where you capture the processes and the steps that you actually take to achieve the things that you want to achieve within your workflow. Now, this could be you, it could be other members in your team, and you're not worrying here about documenting anything at the moment. You're simply trying to record and be able to capture the steps that need to be taken so that you can complete a particular workflow. And depending on what that process is or what that workflow is, use the best way to be able to capture that. In some cases, it might be a Loom video that you or your team member will actually record and screen share and be able to actually share the process in terms of the step-by-step of what they're doing. Or it could be somebody actually watching you doing it and logging it down, or you logging it down, or you running through a video recording of how you actually do a particular physical process. Whatever it is, find the most convenient way to be able to really capture that process so that you can go back and watch it and sort of look at it over and over again and understand exactly the steps that it took to be able to get from the beginning until the end.
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
The next step is really to be able to document it. And documenting the processes and the workflows here can come in many, many different forms. One of the easiest things to do initially is, first of all, have a table. And within that table, be able to sort of like really document, and you say, this is the system, this is the purpose of the system. And also here are the different processes associated to it. Here are the different people that are going to be responsible for that role. And here are the particular sort of documents that we're going to refer to and we're going to be able to document. Now, that's the first set of things that you should be able to do. And once you've done that, then you go on to documenting the actual SOPs and the processes. Before documenting the SOPs, it's a good idea to document a workflow. And that could come in the form of a step-by-step process or a workflow, like a flow chart, where you say this happens first, then this happens, then that goes to this person, then that happens, and this comes back. And then we can't do that because we're waiting on this thing to happen first. And these are the kind of things that you would be looking at. A good example of that could be a swim lane chart, where I actually talk about it as part of the YouTube workflow process. I'll have a video up here that you can have a look at. So if you're looking for a sort of an example of a workflow, that's a good video on this channel to also check out, but finish this video first and then you can go and check it out. So once you've actually documented the workflow, then comes the step of being able to actually start looking at the different instructions and the procedures that you need to put. And that's where your SOPs come in. Your SOPs are basically, you say, right, okay, here are the step-by-step instructions of how to go about doing a particular step in the process.
I have been waiting weeks to bust this bad boy out.
Where we've talked about the processes being step 1, step 2, step 3, The SOPs are really telling you how to go about doing them in more detail. What is the expected outcome? Who does it? What kind of software tools do you need to use? How do you go about it? Do you have to go and click on a button here? And by the way, this can be a document, and that document can also link to a video that you can watch a screen share of somebody actually clicking on a software package and saying, this is how I go about doing this particular step. Or you could grab images, snapshots, things like that. But the idea here is to make it crystal clear, and there is no doubt on how a particular thing is done. And there is no doubt on the intended result and the quality of that intended result. Plus also, how do you make sure and how do you check that that intended result actually happens? And that's where a checklist sometimes comes in at the end for quality control, where you can say to yourself, right, okay, have I done these things? Does it address these particular points? Does it have this intended result? Is it of this quality? Yes, great, no.
Start over.
And that's the process of documenting your systems as well as your processes and your workflows. Once you've documented everything that you need to, the next step is to really test it out. And what I advise here is to get somebody else completely who's not been involved in the process of mapping, in the process of capturing or documenting, to really test it out. Yes, it should be someone sort of relatively qualified that you know that they can actually complete that job. But the idea here is to be able to give it to someone who's not been part of this process, so that you can make sure that it gets done to the exact same quality standards and the exact same intended results are achieved every single time, every single time, every single time. Because what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get these documents and these systems and these processes so that you can delegate them to other people, and it's not person dependent. So if that person leaves, you can then bring in somebody else who's suitably qualified, give them the exact same systems and the processes and the documents and all of that, and they can just sort of open it up and get on with it and get exactly the same results. And that's how a lot of the franchises work. You go to McDonald's, for example, they're exactly the same no matter what country you go to or who's actually working in them. And that's what we're trying to achieve for your business right now. Once they've tested it out, the next step after that is to improve. And this is kind of a cycle. You want to be able to go through testing and improving, testing and improving. And then when you're improving, you're looking for certain things. You'll want to make sure, is there any ambiguity? Was there something that was too complex to understand? Was there a step that was missed out? Was there something that was not really very efficient to do? And can we cut that item out? There are a couple of things that you want to be able to look at here. But also, most importantly, is how do you simplify?
Simplify, man!
Because one of the things that I've seen a lot of companies do when they try and implement SOPs, for example, is that they have them so detailed that they're overly complex and they end up living on shelves. And that's not what I want for you or for your business. So try and simplify. And that's the process here where you're improving and testing, improving and testing. And once we've done all of that, then you're ready to go live. But before we go live, there are some questions that I've mentioned earlier on that we need to be asking. And these questions need to be asked throughout the entire steps of what we've just spoken about. So let's have a look at these questions right now. But also afterwards, when you want to go live,
We are going live in 5!
there are some key things that you need to do to make sure that it actually works. So make sure that you stick around until the end. Just a quick message here. If you're finding this video really valuable, then please hit that like button because it really does help both the video as well as the channel. And I really also want to take this opportunity to invite you to subscribe because we have a lot of information for business owners like yourself that really want to be able to grow their business without losing their sanity. Right, that's it enough for me. Back to our regular broadcast. The 5 questions that you need to be asking get asked every single step of the way that we've been talking about here. So this is not something that you do after or before a certain step. These are integrated at every single step. You need to be asking yourself these exact same 5 questions, and they're very, very simple, but extremely important. And those questions are what, why, when, who, and how. Obvious, but it's really critical. You need to be asking yourself, what needs to happen? What are the steps? What kind of software are we using? What kind of things are going to happen here? What are the end results? There are a lot of whats that you need to be asking at each step of the way. Why are we doing this?
Why?
Because sometimes it might be something that has just been done and it's not actually the best way to do something. But also it enables you to understand the purpose of what you're trying to achieve later on, so that when other people sort of pick it up, they understand what it is that they're trying to do and why are they actually doing this. But also it helps you understand if these things are efficient, effective, so on and so forth. You also want to ask yourself when.
When does this happen in the movie?
Now. You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening now.
What happened to then?
We passed then.
When?
Just now. We're at now.
Go back to then.
When?
Now.
Now?
Now.
I can't.
Why?
We missed it.
When?
Just now.
When will then be now? soon.
When do each of these particular things happen? And in what order? Because certain things can only happen after other things have happened. It's really critical if you're trying to make yourself and your business incredibly efficient and incredibly effective, which is one of the key things to the success of your business, then being able to understand when things happen at the right times is going to be crucial. So what, why, when? The next one is who.
Who's on first, what's on second, I don't know, is on third.
You know the guy's names on the baseball team?
Yes.
Well, go ahead. Who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the guy's name.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I don't know.
So at each step of the process, who is going to be responsible? The good thing here, and what I would recommend, is that you look at the roles and the functions within your business and make them the responsible people. Yes, we can allocate individual names later on and we can say, you know, Pete or Sarah or Sue or Mike or whoever. But what you want to be doing at this stage is saying the marketing person needs to be doing this, the salesperson needs to be doing this, operations person or whoever, the production or development, the finance. So you need to be able to understand what roles are going to be involved so that when Mike or Sue or Mary or whoever leaves and you get a different Mike or Sarah or Sue, then they can sort of come in and actually pick up where they left off because they know that they are carrying out this role or this particular thing. So who is going to be really important at the different steps and who passes it on to who and when? And that's why it's really important at each of these stages to make sure that you are on top of all of these questions. The last one, but by no means least, is the how. And that's where a lot of the good stuff happens inside your SOPs. How do things get done? And how do people go about doing them in all of these particular scenarios that we've just spoken about? So those are the 5 questions. They're very, very important. Now, let's talk about going live. And it's really important to make sure that you go about it in the right way. Otherwise, unfortunately, it might not work as well as you would want it to be.
3, 2, 1.
So when you are finally ready to go live, there are a couple of systems that are critically missing from a lot of companies when they do go live. And the first one is really having a go live system or a go live checklist at the very, very least, where you're saying, right, if we go live, here are the steps to make sure that we go live properly. Have you uploaded the documents to the right place where everyone can access them? Have you notified the right people that this system is now a go? And have you done this and this and this and this? Do you have the right sort of software tools and the right licenses? And do we have the right passwords and login details for the people that are going to be able to use them? There needs to be quite a few things here so that people aren't sitting there chasing someone else and saying, well, I don't have access to that. I don't have login details.
Pete says nah.
And that wastes days and days and days. So what we want to be able to do is when we do go live, we go through this checklist and we say, right, everything is up and running. We're ready to go live. The minute it goes live, we're good to go. And that's what we want to have. Now, the second system that I also sort of mentioned earlier on that's also missing with a lot of companies is actually a continuous improvement system. And that's where you're continuously improving that system, because once you've gone live, that's not the end of it. You're going to start measuring. You're going to start making sure that you track and get feedback and also try and optimize. So you're measuring, feedback, optimize. And that process there and that workflow needs to be a continuous cycle. And then what you're doing is you're optimizing the system, updating the documents, updating all of these things so that you are making sure that you are always at optimal level. And if that system or that process no longer works because conditions have changed in the market, you'll be able to identify that really early on. So those are the steps that you have to take to be able to build systems as well as go live and introduce your systems inside your business, as well as continuously optimize and improve them. Hope that's been useful for you. See you next time.